If you like our videos, please give a thumbs up and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to be notified of new videos. Louisiana, like all of the American South, is an enchanting place, full of legends and folklore. And, it would seem, UFO sightings in an apparent abundance. These sightings have happened for decades and continue today, but one particular 2-month period in the late 1970s would see the skies over the bayou seemingly awash with strange, glowing lights that many Louisianans believed were cosmic visitors from another world. While we will look at some of those sightings in a moment, a strange incident took place more recently in the early hours of the 20th of December 2016 in the town of Kenner. Shortly before 5 a.m., the anonymous witness would hear a loud booming type sound in the skies outside their home. When they stepped outside, a loud vibrating noise was still audible. Then, they looked up to see a low-flying triangular-shaped craft flying overhead. There were 3 bright lights on each corner of the craft, as well as various flashing lights on the underside. Having been alerted by the initial boom sound, the witness managed to capture several moments of footage of the strange object. You can check out the video footage of the sighting below. The 1977 mini wave on the bayou. Early in 1977, it would seem that UFO sightings went into overdrive for a short time, with activity reported all around the bayou state. On the 15th of January, for example, while driving along Judge Perez Highway, Peter DeGangi and his wife witnessed strange bright lights in the sky. The lights hovered silently near a water tower and had the appearance of 3 lights chained together. The object remained in this position for around 15 minutes before vanishing. Just short of a week later, on the 21st of January, Erwin Meneses and Robert Mellarine would share a bizarre encounter while on their boat along the bayou near to the Wyclosky Shell Refinery. As the 2 nutria hunters moved along the water, a huge light suddenly descended to about 70 feet above them. As it did so, the boat came to a complete stop. Even more bizarre, although the 2 men could speak to each other, they were unable to move. They would later describe the feeling as what suspended animation might feel like. Suddenly, the light vanished, and with it, whatever power it held over the men and their boat. The vehicle suddenly shot forward once free of the strange craft's grip, causing both men to lose their balance and fall to the small deck. They witnessed the strange object inspect the nearby refinery before heading to the Wyclosky water tower. In total, the light remained visible for around half an hour. What is perhaps interesting about these 2 sightings is the apparent focusing of the lights on the water towers. We have examined before how a large number of UFO sightings always occur near open waters or a huge supply thereof. 2 separate sightings on the same night. The day after the encounter of the 2 men on the bayou came 2 more sightings on the evening of the 22nd of January. Mark Boudreau was stood with his brother, Damien, on the porch of his house when the pair noticed reddish-orange lights making bizarre and spectacular moves in the skies over the western area of New Orleans. Due to Damien having had the experience of working at the city's airport, he was fairly certain it wasn't a conventional aircraft they were viewing. He would state after the incident that the object was much bigger and brighter and did things airplanes cannot do. Around the same time, in Chalmette, just outside of the city, 3 adults and 3 children traveling to Jean Lafitte Parkway would witness a dome-shaped craft descend so low, it almost landed. As the passengers looked out of the car's left side windows, they could clearly make out red and yellow lights moving around the sky in a way unlike any aircraft any of them had seen before. Then, after around 10 minutes, it suddenly dived towards the ground. It disappeared into the trees of the forest near the side of the road. They would speed off immediately. Furthermore, they wouldn't speak of the sighting to anyone until it became clear that many others in the state had seen similar things. 3 nights later, on the 25th of January, came another strange sighting near the 1-10 expressway. The witness, Claire Wetta, would describe the mysterious craft as cigar-shaped but longer and narrower than the Goodyear blimp. She would also recall how 2 different shades of green emanated from the craft. It was only visible for around 15 seconds before vanishing without warning. More sightings from the Louisiana highways. After a brief respite from aerial anomalies, Another report came in on the evening of the 8th of February from Gail Rodriguez, who along with her son, Brian, witnessed a strange craft as they were driving along St. Bernard Highway. The craft would fly in the same direction of the road that Rodriguez was heading. It was a distinct saucer shape, with a flat bottom, a dome top with lights coming from it, and glowed a fantastic silver color. Around the edge of the craft was a row of lights that appeared to move as well as changing color from blue to green, and then bright white. The craft was in sight for several seconds before vanishing from the area. The day after, in Madison County in Mississippi along the Louisiana-Mississippi border, Deputy Sheriff Ken Creel and Deputy James Luke would respond to a UFO sighting near the small town of Flora. As they were making their way to the location, an unknown craft appeared out of nowhere and hovered over their patrol car no more than 50 feet above them. A bright light suddenly emerged from the craft and hit their vehicle, causing their radio systems to malfunction. Furthermore, several other witnesses would back up the two officers' sighting. One of these corroborating witnesses was Flora police officer Hubert Roberts, who was sat in his parked car just off the main highway when the aerial anomaly appeared in view. He would flash his car headlights in an attempt to communicate with the strange craft. Roberts was certainly taken aback a little when the object responded by flashing two of its lights back to him. Shortly after, it vanished at breakneck speed. Increased activity over Lake Charles. While the mini wave of early 1977 was one of the busiest periods of UFO activity in the Louisiana area, the sightings continue in the area today. One particular UFO hotspot in the Bayou State would appear to be around Lake Charles. For example, on the 17th of January 2014, a duck hunter witnessed a bright star-shaped object descend to the woodland on the water's edge. He would watch the light move erratically over the water for several moments before it stopped and disappeared. A similar sighting occurred in November 2015 when a star-shaped object was seen moving back and forth over the water at reasonable speed before vanishing from sight. Perhaps one of the most bizarre encounters occurred in February 2016, at least according to the anonymous report. The witness in question claims to have been at their home near Lake Charles when an electronic fog appeared inside his house. This fog stuck to his eyes, blinding him temporarily. He would also report beaming lights emanating from this mysterious fog, which caused his body to go into cramp. One of the most convincing UFO sightings over the Lake Charles area took place in late August 2003. Stephanie Wilkes would witness a strange glowing object, which her mother managed to capture on film. It was just after 9 p.m. when the young woman spotted the orange lights hovering over a field that sits opposite the family home. Her father also witnessed the anomaly following his daughter's calls to come and look. He would claim there was definitely lights out there, but was unsure if they were part of a solid craft. In total, 10 separate witnesses would go on record claiming to have witnessed the same lights as Stephanie. The 1967 Old River incident, perhaps one of the most intriguing UFO sightings in Louisiana, occurred over 50 years ago in January 1967, not least because it produced several photographs. A trout fisher would capture the pictures. And while he was happy to make a report of the incident, he wished to remain anonymous and out of the public eye. As the unknown man sat in his boat on the Old River in Baton Rouge at around 4 p.m., he noticed a strange object in the overcast sky heading in his direction. He instantly reached for the camera he always had with him on such trips. Having to rush his shot due to the speed of the object, he was caught off guard. When he finally did have it in the viewfinder, it began a rather slow turn to the right. He pressed down on the shutter and captured the disc-like craft at a 45-degree angle. Before he could snap another picture, however, the object had vanished. Several hours later, at around 9 p.m., he was checking on his lines. He suddenly became aware of an unusual sound, like a huge vacuum cleaner running full blast. He moved his boat in the direction of the noise. Despite stopping and starting his boat engine several times, he was unable to locate where the sounds were coming from. By the time he arrived back at the main camp where he was staying, the sound was no longer audible. He would turn in for the night. The following day, however, he would encounter the object again: dead fish and startled crows. As he negotiated his boat along the waters the next morning, he noticed how much dead fish littered the surface. It was normal to see a few dead fish on the water during such trips. However, he had never seen this many in one place before. A short time later, he brought his boat to the bank. On the water's edge, he started some target practice with his hunting rifle. All the while he kept the old river in sight, the strange object still very much on his mind. Suddenly, he could hear the crows in the trees, chattering like crazy. He turned his attention to the direction of the noise. Although it was further away than the first time he saw it the previous afternoon, there in front of him was the strange craft. And again, it was heading straight for him. As he had the previous day, he reached for the camera. With slightly more time, he lined up the shot, waited several moments, and pressed down on the shutter. He had time to wind the camera and take a second shot. However, by the time he had pulled the camera from his eye, the strange object had gone. It moved upwards, like an elevator, until it vanished into the gray cloud-heavy sky. UFO activity in Louisiana, the 21st century. More recent times, in the opening decades of the 21st century, UFO sightings all around the state of Louisiana have continued. Following celebrations on the 4th of July 2007 at around 9 p.m., for example, a mother and her daughter witnessed what looked like a huge ball of fire over the town of Alexandria. The flaming globe was heading straight for their vehicle, turning at the last moment and heading into the distance. It remained visible for around 10 minutes before vanishing. Several months later, at 3 a.m. in the opening hours of New Year's Day 2008 in Baldwin, an unnamed witness was returning from a New Year's Eve party and driving along Highway 90. Suddenly a strange glowing light appeared in his rearview mirror, which he at first thought was a meteor. However, the more he looked at the strange light, he could make it out to be a solid silver sphere. It was visible for 5 or 6 seconds, but the witness could still see how perfectly shaped it was. Certainly not a product of nature. Metallic crafts and shrinking objects. In May 2009, two brothers would report an egg-shaped UFO from their bedroom window just before 9 p.m. one evening. The pair viewed the object through their binoculars, noting that it was spinning quickly and flashing multiple colors. Then, as the pair watched in awe, it suddenly stopped spinning and zoomed out of sight. In 2010, two more intriguing sightings occurred. On the 27th of October, just before 9 p.m. in the town of Scott, a metallic hexagon or octagon-shaped craft was visible in the sky. White light flashed from the object as it moved. The witness would state their amazement that only they had seen it. 2 months later, on the 23rd of December in Lafayette, a circular craft the color of a white fiery flame was witnessed by a diner who was waiting for their fellow diners to join them outside. The object was visible for around 3 minutes. Even stranger, though, was the bizarrely lit craft then began to shrink rapidly until it disappeared. The witness, although reporting the event anonymously, wouldn't speak of the encounter to anyone in person for fear of ridicule. You can check out the video below. It features a local news segment on a Louisiana UFO sighting from 2013.